Hi there, so I have something kind of interesting to show you today. In Ableton and many DAWs, you have delay plugins, which basically allow you to take your audio and have it repeat after some delay, and then usually it might repeat a couple more times. Essentially, the audio goes into the plugin, after some delay it plays it then captures that, and it plays it again, over and over again, reducing the volume by some amount each time. Great. Now, Ableton has some pretty good delay plugins, just default delay, it gets the job done. It has some simple settings that you'll need. There's a filter in it, and this filter gets applied every time the audio gets sent through the delay plugin. So basically repeated iterations of the audio that come from the feedback have this delay applied over and over again. At least that's my understanding of it, and that's cool. And there's also echo, which allows for some more complicated stuff. So you can do modulation, you can add character, add noise, ducking is nice as well, and that's all great. But you might want even more control than that. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. What we're going to do today is we're going to have whatever plugins we want in the delay, meaning those plugins will get reapplied every time the audio feeds back. And this is distinct from, for example, putting the plugin after delay. You might have delay here, and then you might have something like, some vinyl distortion afterwards. And, this will just take the delay signal, the total delayed signal, and add some distortion to it. But if we could, in a way, put this as distortion inside the delay, we could reapply that distortion over and over again. And as the signal repeated, it would get more and more distorted. So that's the idea, in its general, not just distortion. So let's just hear this first, our source audio. This cocoon caught in Vesuvius' shadow. It's not the best vocal take ever. This is me singing Cocoon by the Decemberists. Okay, great. So that's just the dry signal. Now let's look at a very simple echo on it with a lot of feedback for demonstration purposes. This cocoon caught in Vesuvius' shadow. Okay, that's, obviously a lot of feedback, and more importantly, it's nothing special. This is exactly what you would accomplish with a delay plugin. But here's where the fun starts. Let's put in here, after our delay, a utility in, and let's put the balance a little bit to the right in the utility, and let's listen to how this sounds. This cocoon. So you can hear, if you've got headphones on, if you're listening on like a phone speaker or on a computer speaker, you might not notice the audio is moving to the right as it fades away, which is pretty interesting, right? You don't really have the ability to get that effect with any of the default either echo or delay plugins in Ableton. And I'll explain how this is working, but for now I just want to demonstrate. Okay, that's kind of cool. So now let's do something, let's get a ping pong effect going. And you probably know what the ping pong effect is. We have this button right here, which does the exact same thing. So yet again, we're doing something that's already been done. But I still think that it's interesting to see how it works. So really quickly, I'm going to put a plugin here. Oops, sorry. Go to echo this, and we'll just put this all the way on the right. Let's hear how this sounds. So you can hear it's bouncing back and forth. That's really cool, I think. But here's something that you can't actually do with a normal echo plugin. We can control a little bit how much we want this to bounce back and forth. So for example, normally this would simply bounce back and forth far left and far right. But what we can do is we can actually make it bounce back and forth a little bit less than that. Let's say, 35 to the right. Here it's a little closer in. We can do even less. Okay, that's cool. Again, you could do this with a delay plugin. It's a little bit challenging, but it can be done. But here's something cool. Let's take this width parameter right here. Let's move it up a little bit. Now let's listen to what happens. You can hear as the echo delays, it spreads out across the stereo image. And I'll make the effect a little bit more pronounced and add even more feedback here. So I think that's really cool. The ability to make your echo spread out as it decays is something that I don't think is possible. Echo might have, the Ableton Echo might have that as a built-in feature. I'm not entirely clear, but certainly you don't get that much control over it. You get more control with this. Yeah, and just for demonstration purposes, we can try one more thing, which I think is kind of fun. Now I'm going to be careful with this because it can get pretty crazy pretty quickly. But let's stick some overdrive in here. I'm going to not have any dynamics here. Pump the drive up a little bit. It's not sounds. Now this is going to feedback a lot if I'm not careful. This cocoon caught in Vesuvius' shadow. Only the ashes remain. So you can hear with the tail there of our echo, and it's still going, as it decays, it also gets more distorted. The sound gets, crunchier and crispier, which is a very interesting effect, not one that you can do with any of the default Ableton plugins. Okay, great. So that's the end of the demonstration here. And now let's talk about how this works. So let's just get rid of everything unnecessary. This is going to have a lot of nested stuff going on, and I'm going to try to explain it as clearly as possible. Okay, firstly, we just have an audio effect rack here with two chains, dry and echo. This is a very common thing. If you're confused about audio effect racks, they're going to be used a lot here, so I would just play around with it in Ableton. They're not super complicated, but it's good to know about them. Okay, so we have dry and echo, and dry is just obviously the unmodified audio. And then echo is going to be our echoing signal. Now, the audio is going to do two things. It's going to combine. This means it's going to combine the dry signal with the delayed signal, and it's going to split. That means send off the echoing signal to one place while looping the signal back after some delay. Basically, you can imagine this like a loop. And let me actually pull up a little drawing here. Our audio comes in. Okay. Now here's the dry chain. It's just going to continue. It's going to continue. But each of these junctions right here, we're going to take our audio, come back with it, delay here by some amount of time. Let's say, 100 milliseconds, for example. And then it's going to loop back and recombine. So I hope that makes sense. So that's what's happening in concept. Now let's see how that actually plays out. So first we have the combine here, and I'm actually going to do this second, even though it's first in the list, because split is a little more simple. So we have echo output. Now this is using a trick that I showed in another video, but you've probably not seen that video because who the hell's seen that video? I found this on some Ableton forum somewhere. You can use a compressor as sort of an insert in a way, or like a send. It's hard to exactly describe. More like a return, actually. Basically, there's a sidechain compression feature, which you might know about. Which you might not know about is the sidechain listen switch, which lets you only hear the sidechain input. Then we can select the specific input we want. In this case, we're selecting the output from the echo, and then listen to it. This basically, and we disable the compression itself, our ratio is at 1. So basically does is it turns the compressor into a way to send audio from one location to another. So what we're doing here is we're sending audio from the output of our echo to here. This is just to get rid of the initial dry signal. Okay. Then we have this chain back. Now nothing's happening in back, but you can see it's muted, and this is going to become important in a moment. Now in combine, we have the dry signal like before. And let me pull up this image again, even though I removed it, which is probably silly of me, just so that I can refer back to it as I'm explaining. Okay, so right now, this combine is this section right here. Split is this section right here. And we're sending it back via this compressor right here. Same idea, sidechain listen on, and we're getting the audio from split back. So this is one of the chains on the split audio effect rack. Then here we have a delay. Now the specific parameters of this delay are important. Firstly, the dry wet is at 100%. We don't want the dry signal because we're trying to get the echo right now. Secondly, the feedback is at 0%, which is probably strange for you unless you've done like a slapback echo or something. This basically only captures the first delay. So it delays the sound by, in this case, 2/16 notes. And then it sends it once, it plays it once, and then it doesn't play it again. And that's because if you refer back to this drawing, this delay is only happening once each time. As in, we delay our sound by some amount. 100 milliseconds is what I had here before. Then it loops. And when it loops, it'll play multiple times. So you don't have to worry about this part playing the sound multiple times. The only purpose of this part, this delay plugin here, is simply to delay the audio once by some amount of time. Then we send it into basically gain. This is just a little tiny, extremely simple plugin I wrote that lets you set your gain on a percentage basis instead of on a dB basis. Then the final thing I have here, just because it's pretty common for the levels to go out of control if you're not careful, I have a limiter just so that it doesn't blow my ears out. This can be removed or just disabled if you need to, and it does add some latency, which I don't like. So, it's not 100% necessary by any means. I also could have just put a compressor at infinite ratio in order to remove the latency. But yeah, anyway, limiter here for safety. And that's the entire thing. So just to go over this again in case you're making it for yourself. And actually, you know what I'll do? I'll make it right now. And that will make this a little more obvious. Okay, so you take your audio track. You add an audio effect rack. It's going to be your dry wet. Let's make a new chain. Dry, wet. Dry stays as is. Wet is where all your stuff is going to go. Now you're going to need 2 audio effect racks in here in series. This one is called Combine. The name doesn't matter for your purposes, but I do recommend naming them. Otherwise, it can get very, very confusing. We have Combine, we have Split. Both of these are going to have 2 chains, like I said before, or like we had before, sorry. We have Try, we have Echo, we have Echo Out. Spelling is hard. And we have Loop. I think I called this back on the other one, but I'm going to call it Loop here. Loop is turned off. Now in Echo Out, you're going to go to your dynamics, grab a compressor, stick it in Echo Out, turn the ratio to 1, get rid of the EQ. And this is, I'm going very fast here, but you can, pause and refer to this. I just feel like going through the information as fast as possible is probably a little easier. So then we're just going to go to Wet, Combine, Echo, Post FX. And we can close this. This is fine. So no effects needed here. Now we have our dry signal. As I said, nothing needed there. In Echo here, we're going to have a compressor, sidechain, no EQ, sidechain from Split, Loop, and ratio goes to 1. Okay. Now I'm going to quickly just put in, for demonstration purposes, let's just put a normal gain plugin here. So it's a little easier for you following along. And let's map this to mix. I don't know why it's called mix. Let's rename this to feedback. And this is just a nice trick. You can edit your feedback like this. I recommend doing that because there's no way you're going to want to have more output gain than you started with. Because that will blow your ears out very quickly. Great, so that's your feedback level. And then the sauce, you add your delay right here. You don't need the filter, you can just do that yourself. Try wet at 100, feedback at 0, whatever timing you want. And that is it. And let's demonstrate that it worked. Hopefully I did nothing wrong. If I do, I'll have to do a cut here. Oops.
This cocoon caught in Vesuvius' shadow.
Yep, it's working. Now, just for fun, I could demonstrate some more things. Something that I thought would be cool is, maybe putting a what is called a redux to kind of reduce the sample rate and having it reduce it more each time. Thought that'd be kind of interesting. So let's see how this sounds.
This cocoon.
I think it's doing it a little too fast right now. Let's do this. Yeah, it's already too crunchy by the time we get there. Do this. Let's leave this. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I like that.
This cocoon caught in Vesuvius' shadow.
So yeah, I think that stuff's kind of cool. This definitely would be very useful, I think, for, funky guitar effects. A lot of, like post-rock, for example, they would use a lot of really interesting signal chains with echoes and such to get the sounds that they do. And that can be hard to do in Ableton because you don't have cables to move around. But hopefully this is a way to get towards that kind of idea without having to spend the money on all the gear. So yeah, I hope this was interesting. Maybe not helpful, but definitely kind of fun that it's even possible. Anyway, thanks for watching.